So then I went to colleges and I, sold it to the fraternities and sororities, doing presentations in front of them. That worked great. And then one day a guy goes, "Hey, we've got a company that actually sells a memory program from Stage. You can't sell yours, but you could sell theirs." So I got prepared and a door opened. If I hadn't done all that preparation when that door opened, it would have been slammed shut.
Hey, welcome to the Levelin Up podcast with Brigham Blackham. I'm so grateful to have my friend Bob Kittell on today. We are going to be talking about 3 different ways or keys to preparation that you may not have learned in Scouts. And I bring that up just kind of tongue in cheek because we're going to have a lot of time to talk about preparation from different perspectives and how it can really add value to your business, to your real estate investing, lots of different aspects of life. So Bob, tell us first a little bit about yourself, why people need to get to know you.
Oh, you need to get to know me because I'm funny. I use both my jokes. So that's a good one. I'm usually the on-site entertainment wherever I go. Somebody asked me, how could I help out with the construction of this person's house? I said, well, I could do heavy labor and on-site comedy. I got about 100 jokes memorized, so it helps out.
I love it. The handful of different jokes, be able to play around and have some fun. That's going to be great. So tell us a little bit about where you are in business, what it is that you like to do, and then how you've gotten into this space. Because I know you do a lot of comedy. You have a lot of fun talking in front of people. I saw your TED Talk, which is great. I let people in my audience know about it yesterday so they could go and watch it as well. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about your backstory.
Oh, well, the backstory is I went to college going, I have no clue what I'm going to do. And I meet these kids that go, I don't know what I'm going to do. I go, hey, I graduated with my master's degree before I found out what I was going to do. But I just kept going down that road. And then one day I heard Zig Ziglar, who was the greatest, motivational speaker at the time. I was listening to him speak and I go, oh, I'm going to do that one day. And I have no idea how that popped into my head. And so I started getting prepared for that. And that'll be part of the story as we go on. And then one day I found myself on one of the biggest stages in North America, going up after Margaret Thatcher, who used to be the prime minister. I think it's called the Prime Minister of England. And before Barbara Bush, who had been the former first lady. And then since then, I've been with all these celebrities, speaking with Tom Brady and all the way back to Muhammad Ali, Michael J. Fox. I sit there, standing there talking to 30,000 people going, well, how did this happen? And, that would be part of our story, getting prepared. Then something interesting happened. When my kids were growing up, I decided I'm not going to be gone more than 4 days a month and made that choice. I could have made 3 times as much money by being gone all the time. And I go, no, it's my kids. And they all graduated. I go, now I could speak more. And I got up to about 100 times a year, speaking to a lot of schools. I speak to schools and the military pro bono, but I was speaking all over Canada with Tony Robbins. And then COVID hit and the world of speaking died.
Wow.
So, and then my promoter passed away, which didn't help either. So where I'm today, I officiate a lot of track meets all over the state of Utah. I officiate the pole vault, been doing that for 20 years. I speak every once in a while. I'm not really a marketer. I've always ended up on tours. So I'm still just getting prepared for when that next door opens.
Yeah. I love it though. That's so fun to be able to see, hey, there are multiple aspects to your background, but it all comes down to when you have an opportunity, are you ready, able, and willing to be able to take that opportunity? So tell us a little bit, when we talk about these first keys to preparation, what is it?
Oh, well, one of the first ones is I learned this long ago, and I think I learned it from Zig Ziglar. I will get ready and perhaps my chance will come. And then, there's a couple other things like luck is when preparation meets opportunity. There's some sports star who said, I found the harder I work, the luckier I get. So it's always been my policy, if I like something, I'll do everything in my power to get prepared. In fact, my mentor said these words, and if I get into that story, I'll repeat it. But he said, it's better to be prepared and not get the opportunity than to get the opportunity and not be prepared. So I've lived my life that way.
I love it. That's such a great mentality because when we have that preparation, it builds confidence. And I think when you're competent and hey, if I get my 5 minutes, I'm going to deliver. It changes the way that you show up. And I think that's a really, really helpful mentality to go about as a speaker. So As we dive into this multiple elements of preparation, what is another key to being prepared that you're like, man, if you do this, you will not only have more confidence, but you'll be able to really deliver on what is brought up?
Well, that comes down to practice. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember when I got talked into selling door to door,
Uh-huh.
and it was a great company. He took all the salesmen. It was a summer sales type of thing, and he took us all to this beautiful hotel up at Park City, and he had all the greatest speakers come in to motivate us. And Zig Ziglar came in, Earl Nightingale back then,
Love
Ira
it.
Hayes, another great man, and somewhere I got this being prepared thing. And our first step in door to door sales is the door, right?
Mhm.
So it was kind of funny. The first 2 or 3 weeks, I was second in the entire company in sales. And the vice president calls me and says, how many doors are you getting in? I go, all of them. No, 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 no. When you knock on the door and the person actually comes to the door and you're talking to them, how many times do you actually get past the door and do a presentation? I went, all of them. And I was dumb enough back then that I didn't know there was another decision. He goes, how are you doing that? I said, well, during sales school, after our classes were over, I went to the other salesmen and knocked on their doors in the hotel. And I said, hey, pretend you're a potential customer, and I want you to do everything in your power to keep me from coming into your door. And so I practiced everything, and I started using humor. Like, I walked up to this one door when I was selling up in Oregon, and the guy comes out and he's livid and he's swearing and he's mad and goes, sir, watch this. And I did a standing backflip. I go, I flip out over what I want to tell you here today. And he laughed. He goes, can you show my kids that? My other favorite one was I walked up to the door and there's this big sign that says, no solicitors. So I went around to the back door and I knocked on the door. He said, didn't you see that sign on the front door? I said, yes, sir. That's why I came to the back door where there isn't a sign, because I thought this is where you want all of us pesky salesmen to come. So he
That's a
let
good.
me in. So, but I got prepared. I had practiced for hours and heard everything they could possibly say. And then just one other little uh, thing about that. Maybe this also helped me get in the door. My goal was they're going to smile before I leave.
Mm.
And I just made that a policy. And, a lot of people didn't buy, a lot of people did, but I got on every door and I got to meet a lot of people. And if they didn't buy, they'd invite me to a barbecue that weekend.
That's such a great mentality, because I think a lot of salesmen, they get stuck in this. Oh, well, it didn't go through, so I have a failure or whatever. But you're like, I'm gonna make them smile. What a great way to approach someone, because you're like, I'm gonna make their day better, whether they like it or not.
Well,
That's
this will bring us into it. Just as we're just talking about with anything. I
yeah.
once heard a talk about secrets of a pickup artist and how to start a conversation with anyone.
Mm.
Brand new cold call. It's CIQ. You compliment them. So, by the way, that's a great picture you got behind you.
Oh, that's
When
thank
you
you so
and
much.
look, you smiled.
Yep.
So you compliment them about something, not their looks, because you said that's creepy, but something like earrings or whatever. And so I was telling a friend of mine this, and we were in the Atlanta airport, and I said, hey, let's see if this works. And we found the meanest looking, angriest looking person we could find. He was really big, tattoos, muscles, chains, walked up and said, dude, those are great looking tennis shoes. He goes, thanks, man. So that's a great way to get it started. You introduce yourself. Hi, my name's Bob, B-O-B. You can spell forward backwards the same way. And then ask them a question they can answer. Hey, where's a really good place to eat here at the airport? Have you? And you get the conversation rolling. But I walked into just last Christmas Eve with a friend of mine, and I said, watch this. I'm going to make every single person we walk past smile. And all I did was, wow, those are awesome looking earrings. Wow, those are awesome looking shoes. And it worked. I couldn't find the guy that was sour grapes that would just go, oh, shut up.
You think about the sincerity of those compliments, though. You find someone that you can honestly and very clearly say, hey, this looks awesome. Or like, oh, I really like your jacket. That looks actually really sharp. It makes me want to dress up a little bit more. But no, it looks really, really good. When you find a compliment that is sincere, you can just see people light up. And I think that's a great. So you said the C was compliment. What was the I in the Q?
I is the introduce. And
Mhm.
if I'm just meeting somebody just to meet them, I usually skip that part and just go right to ask them a question they can answer. But it's usually you compliment. If it's in business, hi, my name's Bob, and then pause, then give them your last name, Kittell. and then you ask them a question they can answer. I throw one other thing in because I teach memory skills. Give them a way to remember your name. Hi, my name's Bob, B-O-B. You can spell forward or backwards the same way. Or I'm bobbing up and down, and it helps them to remember my name.
I love that. Bob, you're like with one O, not two. You're like, perfect.
Yeah, you're thinking Bobo, right?
Yeah, no. Oh, that's great. So when you are getting prepared to talk to someone, I feel like there's some people that get stuck in their head about preparation, and they get prepared to get prepared to get prepared to get prepared, and they don't actually do the thing, because getting prepared to do the thing is not doing the thing. How do you say, I'm prepared enough, I'm going to go do the door knocking, or I'm prepared enough, I'm going to make the phone call? Let's go there.
Well, the other part is just I'm going to be unprepared and see what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Fail as fast as you can. In fact, one time I thought I'll just go get 25 no's today. I'll do this fast as I can, and you're going to learn something. You have no expectations. You just show up. You're relaxed. You're not tying it into your self-worth. Because I love this sports psychologist who was asked, what do you do to get the kicker ready to kick the winning field goal in the Super Bowl? He goes, oh, I don't do that. I get them ready to be okay either way, because that football going through the uprights has nothing to do with your worth. That customer saying no to you has nothing to do with their worth. That person who's mad at you has nothing to do with your worth. Okay, you're already of great worth. And then I take it a step further. The person who's upset is the one with the problem. I said, if the fans are upset that you missed the field goal, who's got the problem? They do. If the coach is upset, who's got the problem? He does. So it's like the little boy who says, hey, mommy, where are the stupid idiot drivers today? They only come out when your father's driving. Two people see the same thing. One's upset, one's not. I go, hey, if they're upset, that's on them. You got a member of your family that won't talk to you? Okay, well, that's on them right now. Oh, well, I can't change you. I can just change me.
I think that's such a great way to think about this. With preparation, when we are prepared to look for the good, we start to recognize the good. When we recognize that, hey, we can look at this situation in multiple ways. If someone cuts you off on the freeway, you can either give them the benefit of the doubt. Oh, maybe they have somewhere they absolutely have to get to, and that extra 5 or 6 seconds might be life and death for them. We give them the benefit of the doubt, or we could be mad and let it upset ourselves. So let's talk about this. When you are thinking about preparation in its essence, what is it that you do to practice that makes the biggest impact in speaking?
Oh, in speaking, what I did was I practiced speaking. I mean, my kids actually make fun of me. They go, hey, I'll come to speak to your group. I'll come this Sunday to just your family. Hey, and I'm funny. You use both my jokes. Or I'll speak to your school, or I'll speak to your club. Or I mean, I've probably spoken, when I was speaking twice a month for Get Motivated, and this is twice a month with 17,000 people in an arena. Mm-hmm. On my off days, I would pay someone $20 so I could practice and go through my whole talk with them. And I could see if they were interested or not. And then I would say to you, hey, do you know anybody else who could use $20? Well, send them over tomorrow at 7. I'll give them $20 and they can listen. And I did that. My promoter goes, you're the most prepared speaker I've ever had. And I'm never over time because I've practiced it so many times. But that's what I did. The 3 years between you're going to be a speaker one day in my brain, what did I do for the next 3 years? I go, wow. I bought 1,000 cassette tapes in my lifetime, because it was cassettes back then. And I listened to all these different speakers and go, why is this guy interesting? Why does this guy have the personality of a dial tone? What's this guy? And then I learned, the power of stories. Stories seem to be the best. And so that's what I did to prepare. I went, let's go listen to all the other guys that are doing this and then practice what works. So I spoke many times for free before. Well, when I learned these memory techniques, I spoke to 3,000 college students at BYU like dozens of times for free to get the experience. And then went, I wonder if people will pay for this. And then they did.
I love that. And I think it's going a little bit deeper when you're like, hey, I'm so confident in my message that I'm going to pay somebody else to listen to it. And then that feedback, I feel like you probably cared more about that feedback than you did if you just did it for free. Is that true? Where you're like, hey,
I would ask them, if I had to cut a story out of this, and I'd give them 5 of my stories, would you cut this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one? And they would give me that kind of feedback. And I would get it even with one person. I could see when somebody's bored or not. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I could see when they're laughing and things are working. So I got feedback every single time I did it. And in fact, they would tell me little things like, I used this one word in my talk. And they said, do you know what that means in England? And it was swearing. And I go, I didn't know that. And so I was able to cut it out. So I learned every single time I did it.
Wow. Okay, so when you think about taking steps as a brand new speaker to get on stage, what did you do to be able to get onto those stages? Tell us a little bit of that process, because I bet it didn't happen overnight that you're like, oh, now I'm going to speak in front of 17,000 people. Tell us that process.
Well, the process was one, I was preparing for a long period of time in front of nobody, and then in front of little groups, and then in front of 3,000 kids. I mean, I walked into an anatomy class on campus and said, can I have 5 minutes with your class? I'm doing a free memory workshop tonight for my master's program. And the guy said, yeah. I did a 5-minute presentation, found out I was good at promoting too. The whole class came, over 200 of them.
Wow.
And then he calls me 2 weeks later and he says, hey, you created a problem. That class of 200 students just blew the curve on the other 400 kids. Will you please teach the other 2 classes? And each time I did it, I also gave them a questionnaire. Go, rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. What would you do to improve this? What would you do to, what parts did you like the best? So I was always getting feedback from the groups that I gave this to. So then I went to colleges and I, sold it to the fraternities and sororities, doing presentations in front of them. That worked great. And then one day a guy goes, hey, we've got a company that actually sells a memory program from stage. You can't sell yours, but you could sell theirs. So I got prepared and a door opened. If I hadn't done all that preparation when that door opened, it would have been slammed shut. In fact, when Get Motivated, that big giant seminar company, the biggest in the country, this is how it happened. They called me out of the blue and said, hey, could you come up with a talk on, and they gave me the topic. I said, well, yeah. How long would it take you? I said, about a week. He calls me a week later, the CEO, and he says, is that talk prepared? I go, yeah. Okay, great. Let's hear it. I'm going to get the owner on the phone. On the phone? You don't want me to fly down to Florida to give this to you? No, we'll listen to you on the phone. And I talked into my phone like I was talking to 10,000. Hey, how many of you'd like to? And at the end of 45 minutes, I didn't hear one laugh, one feedback from them at all. At the end of 45 minutes, he said, sounds good. We'll see you in Seattle. And if I had knocked it dead on the phone and then knocked it dead on that stage, it was over, because I watched other people do that and they just never got the chance. So it was just the practice. And, it doesn't always work out. I mean, I wanted to go out for pro football. And so I practiced, picked 100 footballs a day, ran 8 to 10 miles a day, lifted weights, did all this stuff. It didn't work out, but it taught me how to get prepared just in case.
Love that. Being prepared just in case, like that mentality is so key. I mean, I'm a Boy Scout. That's why I gave that title at the very beginning. I'm an Eagle, and that be prepared motto is something that resonates with me. In Chinese, there's Junbei, which means preparation. And that Jun is to have a standard, to be exact in your preparation. And when you're prepared and you're like, this is my standard, I'm going to do whatever I can to hit that standard and be even better, then whatever the opportunity is, you can step on that standard and move forward with it. So let's hear a story. When was a time that you realized that maybe you weren't quite as prepared as you could have been, and you got some great feedback?
Oh, well, one area I know I wasn't prepared. When I was in college, my minor was acting. And
Oh, really?
it helped me a lot for being a speaker. But I didn't work on my acting skills for 20 years. I didn't work on being in plays or anything. And one day, what is it? What's the name of the company? Anyway, she goes, the owner, I can get you auditions all day long with commercials and maybe get you into a couple movies. And I did all the thing of getting my picture and everything taken. And I showed up at a couple of these and I'm going, God, I'm not really good compared to these other guys. And then a friend of mine, Michael Flynn, who actually has, done all kinds of productions and has a workshop. I took his workshop on how to act in front of a camera. And one day I go, Michael, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm about a 2 when it comes to acting in front of a camera. He goes, yeah, that's about right. I said, I'm about a 9 when it comes to speaking. He goes, yeah, that's about right. I said, I'm not very prepared to do this, am I? Probably
not. That's funny. So it sounds like it's not just hey, I'm gonna take that opportunity and prepare just for that one thing. You're thinking down the road. You're like, I want to not just do a commercial. Don't just want to do a movie, or don't just want to speak. I want to figure out how I can be prepared for all of those different elements. And it seemed like because you went and took that acting class, you're getting a little bit more prepared every single day, wherever it is that you're at. So what is it that you've done, like maybe in the last year, that you're like, this has made all the difference in how I show up in my preparation and building my confidence?
I was a cheerleader in front of, Division I school, a kicker in front of a Division I school, in front of 5 million people. I mean, I have the confidence. In fact, if what I did do for a period of time was I learned to lean into my fear.
Yeah.
Like, I would be afraid to talk to someone, so I'd walk up and talk to them. I'd walk into an elevator and turn around and go, "Hello, everyone, welcome to the elevator." And they'd all smile. But I would do something I was afraid of doing until I wasn't afraid of it anymore, and found out, oh, nobody's going to bite my head off. In fact, well, this is what works. This is what doesn't work. Another thing that comes to mind is, I don't know what's next for my career. I mean, speaking for me has kind of died. But what did I do this last few months? I have 100 quotes memorized by number. It's one of my demonstrations. Pick a number. They go 130. Children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them leaves an impression. Well, last summer or a few months ago, I decided to build that up to 200. Then I went to 300. Now I'm up to 600 quotes, jokes, and stories memorized. Every story I've ever given from stage, I've got 160 of them. I could sit here right now and tell you all 160 stories with my eyes closed to remember all of them.
Mm.
So once again, where's that going to take me? Where's it going to go? I don't know, but I'm still preparing and trying to make myself better each day. If there's one of the quotes is, if you're coasting along, it means you have to be going downhill.
Yes. Time to start pedaling. That's awesome.
One of the other things too is, and I'll tell the kids that, because I coach pole vaulting. I said, you guys, when I was a pole vaulter in high school, I did two things. I said, there was no internet. I went and found a book, and it was a mail order thing called The Elusive Bar. And I learned and read about, nobody else was doing that. I found the 3 best pole vaulters in the whole area of Western New York. And I went to them and said, help me be a better pole vaulter. And they said, sure. Or when I was diving, how do you do a front 1.5 with 2 twists? How do you do that? And so when I was in speaking, one of the times I was telling that memory program. Remember I told you that? Yeah. Well, I went out there thinking I'm going to just nail this, and I didn't nail it. And I went, maybe this is different than what I've been doing. I found the very best speaker who sold from stage on memory, and I memorized his entire presentation word for word. And I gave his presentation, and then I eventually morphed it into it being more about me. But if I were to walk into a telemarketing firm, I go, show me your very best. And I would sit there and I would just watch them and learn. When I first sold door to door, I said, who's the best? And I mirrored them. Is that what it's called? Mirrored? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went with him until I went, okay, I think I've got this down now. So you can learn anything if you want to take the time. I mean, watching your podcast, how to learn more about real estate. Tom Hopkins, if I was going to go to real estate, I know Tom Hopkins, and I've gone through his whole class. And I went, that was another thing with me. I just go, well, maybe this isn't exactly what I want to do, but when I buy and sell a house, I have a lot more knowledge.
Yeah. So you're finding the very elite top 1%, probably those people that are practitioners in what they're doing, and they're not just good at it, they're great at it. And then you're cutting the time frame by saying, what can I do to emulate, to mimic, to model what they're doing? And then after you've gotten the script down, after you've understood what they're saying, then you go and say, all right, how do I make this my own? How do I add my own stories, my own flair? That's a great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about what this process is to dive into memory. Because I think memory techniques, I love understanding how different people think and they process things, how they create associations and they disassociate certain things. Tell us what has been so helpful for you in creating these memory techniques, and how that's been, providing more opportunities for you to be prepared.
Well, when I was listening to Zig Ziglar, I read his book, See You at the Top. And in the back, he's got a bibliography of books he suggests you read. One was called, it was a book on memory. So I read it, And it had me do this little exercise with 20 items. And I go, I just remember all 20 of those. Huh. And then I was able to figure out how to apply that to school. And just, a quick example would be, I taught the BYU athletes how to memorize the 27 amendments in under a half hour. And here's just a glimpse of it. You see how 2 looks like a swan? Can you picture that? If you look at it, it resembles a swan, right?
Oh, what looks like a swan? One more time.
Number 2.
Number 2. Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to take a swan and I'm going to close my eyes and picture it on my bare arm. Because the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms, right?
Perfect.
You see how 8 resembles a snowman?
Mm-hmm.
It's cruel and unusual punishment. So I said, okay, everybody take out a blowtorch, close your eyes and see yourself melting the poor little snowman. That's very cruel and unusual.
Cruel and unusual.
If it's a face, I might go something like, guy's name is Ray. And I think of a ray gun and I notice he's bald. So I go, and I see myself taking off all of his hair. Or his name's Mark. So I take a marking pen and he's got a big nose and I shove it up his nose. Or just one other example, like a foreign language, abuda in Japanese, I think, is danger. So I think of Abu, Abu from it was, Aladdin. And I see him hanging from a danger sign off of a cliff. Bam, now I know what it is.
Abu
Or gâteau is cake. I see a cake that's got my toe in French. So those are some quick examples. But that's how I memorized over 600 quotes, jokes, and stories. Every one of my numbers has a picture, and I attach it to, like number 3 is looks like a pitchfork, right? I see my dad carrying a pitchfork. A father who gives his children habits of industry and education provides for them better than giving them a fortune.
That's great. And because you've taken the energy and effort to make sure that is indexed, it has, I always call that a PAV, right? You have your your path that you're thinking about, you have your action, putting it in together, and then some type of verbiage that allows you to make it evocative. So you've got multiple emotions, you've got your thoughts, and you're connecting those in different ways. And this memory technique that you're bringing up, I think the better we get at making associations and creating a story around it, the easier it is to have those memories stay indelible.
Well, the other thing it does is, my understanding is, it creates neural pathways for problem solving, because I'll sit there and go, how do I remember that this belongs to this? And I have to think about it, and I'm building neural pathways. There's a book called I think it's Exactly What to Say, or the exact words, or anyway, there's 23 of them. So I go to my mailbox and I see myself handing the mailbox maybe to you and go, I'm not sure this is for you. Well, those are the first words in the whole book, a whole chapter on, I'm not sure this is for you. What's that going to get you to go, well, don't make a decision for me. Let me decide. Or on my driveway, I see a giant door and I open it. Are you open to? Well, what's the person going to say? No, I'm closed-minded. I'm not going to listen. So I was able to memorize the 23 phrases that it gives in that book. Or, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey, or the 4 Agreements. They're all in my head. So when I need them, they pop into my head. For instance, I'll ask my audience, hey, how many of you procrastinate? How many of you are waiting till later to raise your hand? Well, I said, well, when I went to procrastinate, I would think of quote 188. Who of us thinks we can more easily do twice tomorrow what we didn't do once today? So in life, when you talked about preparation, immediately, I will get prepared and perhaps my chance will come. That's one of my quotes that I memorized from someone else.
This reminds me of being an actor in a lot of ways, because every time that I had a new script, like, you look at it and you're like, man, this is an entire book. But when we really get down to it, it's all beats, it's all moments, it's all simple ideas. And when we make connections, we take the time to draw out, how is this connected? Why is this connected? What are ways that I can make this easier for me to remember and to make those connections? And where does that idea come from? A lot of times we start to weave these back and forth until it just becomes part of us. So I love that you've gone and memorized, you said 600 different quotes and stories.
600 jokes, quotes, and stories. Yeah, somebody says you should be a stand-up comic. I go, I'm a stand-up plagiarist.
There you go. Well, if you're sharing enough different ideas, you think about it, there's no new ideas. You share enough different ideas from different people and you bring them together, That's what creativity is connecting the things that are unconnected, right? And finding ways that, like, hey, this is something I've never seen connected before. Let me see if I can find other ways to eventually get there. I think that's something you're doing right now in your life. You're being prepared by finding all these different things that are important to you, all these different quotes, these different stories, different jokes, and saying, how can I make these uh, connected in different ways? I think that's a great way to be prepared for whatever it is that you need to do. So if you could give like one piece of advice to yourself when you were a young speaker, young entrepreneur, what would you give to yourself as far as a piece of advice?
Well, I'm not sure I already knew this then, but I would reinforce it. Always be curious and ask questions.
Mm.
Did you know the three hardest words? This comes from the book Think Like a Freak, the guy who wrote the book Freakonomics. The three hardest words for a person to say is, I don't know.
Mm.
And when I started work for a company, it was a boys school where they had to stay there and parents paid to have them go. Uh, my supervisor, name's Dan, at the end of every day, I would walk in with a list of questions, and I'd spend 30 minutes to an hour with him every day afterwards. Well, 30 years later, he retired. I said, hey, remember how I used to come in every day after work and ask you all those questions? He goes, uh-huh. I said, well, how many other people did that? He goes, you are the only one. No one else was willing to say, I don't know. And
Mm.
so to say, I don't know, to be curious and go find it and not worry about what other people are thinking, takes a lot of energy to think what other people are thinking.
Yeah. You really bring up a great point. I think being a student and recognizing when you've got these different levels of learning, if you're brand new and you don't know, to have the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to look like an idiot for 5 minutes so I don't have to look like an idiot for eternity. The question that's not asked is the one that is going to be the one that is going to penetrate your psyche and not be able to help you. But if you're willing,
Or to get to a point where you go, I don't care if people think I'm an idiot. This
yeah.
is I'm learning. I'm failing as fast as I can. I'm in a bowling league. I joined a bowling league, right?
Okay.
So I go up to bowl, and there's an old guy next to me, and he looks at me with total disgust and steps back. I go, oh, I'm sorry, you go first. Pal, you're supposed to stay back there. And I looked at him and go, hey, thanks for telling me that. I wasn't aware of that. I'll get better at that. Thank you.
Wow.
So I looked like an idiot just last week, and I just, and maybe he was still angry, and I just went, hey, thanks. In fact, you know what? If I do it again, I'll give you $20. I said, I'm glad you taught me that. Do you know how long I've been bowling for these few weeks? Nobody's ever told me. Thanks.
Yeah. You think about it, sometimes people get upset about things because you don't know what you don't know. And when you have someone that's, even if they do it in a frustrated way, that's something that we can be thankful for when someone points out, oh, this is going to help you if you actually take action on it. So yeah, that bowling league example, it's great. That's something that I wish more people would do in business. I feel like as a short-term rental host, one of the things that has been helpful is when I hear like negative reviews and they're like, hey, this was not a great experience. Here's why. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, for instance, like maybe they wanted um, towels for going to the pool. And I was like, oh, I never promoted that I had those. They just expected that we did have those. I had bath towels for sure, but they wanted specific pool towels. I was like, oh, I guess that is something that people would want. So if they didn't bring it up, I wouldn't have known though. So
Well, can I take that a step further?
yeah, go ahead.
You can't please everyone.
You can't.
I tell my speakers that I'm coaching. I said, when I walk onto that stage, I used to try to win over that one guy reading his newspaper, the one guy who looks disgusted, or the one guy who wrote Bob is the worst speaker I've ever heard. I go, maybe I remind them of their uncle. It's not my fault. I had a young lady that I went out with, and she stopped going out with me. She says, let me tell you why, because you remind me of my old boyfriend, and I just cry every day. She goes, it's not your fault.
Mm,
So, yeah, just understand. I'll take the feedback and go, let me look at that. And then I'll either use it or I won't, and I'll carry on.
I love that. And you think about it, all the data, all the feedback that we get, anytime we fail in whatever it is in business, we can choose, oh, is this helpful for me? Am I going to use this in the future or not? That's the choice. It's like, oh, I will take the blue pill. This is going to work. or that red pill. You know what? I'm not going to use that. I will just say thank you for the feedback, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, to summarize here, what would be the final thought or story that, like, man, if you did nothing else, do this and your preparation will be more on point?
Do this, do nothing else. I wrote down the three things that would be: find the best at what you want to be. When I was a kicker in high school, I would watch college kickers.
Yeah.
Learn. I tell the kids when I'm in schools, you can learn anything. Now with the internet, my gosh, you can learn anything. I had to actually go to the library and take the books and read them, or I'd ask other people and then just practice. I like that one quotation. Don't practice until you get, wait, don't practice until you get it right. Practice it until you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
And you're not going to reach perfection, and then give yourself a break and just enjoy the journey. Be able to laugh at yourself and go, I can't believe I'm standing up there by the line and this guy's going to have, God, is he having a bad day or a bad 5 minutes? And he's going to milk it for the rest of the day.
All of us have those opportunities that when life is not going well, or we have some situation that's a challenge, we get to choose how we respond to it. And I think in that space, one of my favorite quotes by Viktor Frankl says, when between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our ability to respond or react. And that's that free will that we're talking about, that agency. We can choose how we show up. We can choose how prepared we are. We can choose whether or not we're going to do the work and do it consistently until we have all the feedback we need to say, wow, I know that this product or service that I'm giving is top notch and it's going to add value. It's going to solve this problem. So, Bob, thank you so much for sharing some time and some heartbeats with me. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
For whatever reason, it just kind of bubbled up. This is one of my new favorite things. My brother had a psychology professor at University of Buffalo. He says, when we have empirical evidence that something works in psychology, we know for an absolute certainty it works for some of the people, some of the time.
I love that. Works for some of the people, some of the time, but not all the people all the time.
So
Because we're
give it a shot. If it doesn't work, try it again. If it still doesn't work, well, maybe try it for something else.
That's a great way to think about it. I really appreciate you being on today, Bob. It's so much fun to interact with awesome people like yourself. And how do people find you online if they want to continue to interact with you?
Well, if they have Instagram, I'm Bob Memory, BOBMEMORY, on Instagram, and I've got 501 Minute with Bob's on there. And then just to contact me directly, expertsbob.com. It's got my phone number on it. People call it, you answer your own phone? I go, of course. Why? I said, why not? I was this one guy who said, well, I don't have time for little people anymore. And I went, wow, even God hasn't reached that point yet.
That's a great point. Even God hasn't reached that point. He has time for all of us. Well, I appreciate you, Bob. Thank you so much for sharing some great ideas on preparation and also being a great example of preparation. Excellent stories and quotes. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for that.
Hey, well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. We always appreciate feedback. Leave a review. Would love to have an opportunity to continue to build value for you and your family as you're growing your business and leveling up. So God bless. Have a great day.